Well, he did when he was younger. He slept outside with other people who were homeless to actually really feel what it was like. I initially thought it was a bit of a stunt, but I've come to think that it isn't that. He actually wants to help the charity. Perhaps people aren't giving the charity enough money and people are still in the street. Well, you see it wherever you go now, these tiny little bundles of people on a mat or filthy, dirty mattress or in a tiny tent. They're everywhere, and perhaps he was helping them encourage other people to donate to a very worthy charity that he first saw when he was quite a young boy. His mother, Princess Diana, took both of them round to see how the unfortunate lived and how people, what it was like to be homeless when they were living in splendour. And it's actually kept with them all their lives so far.
Tim Montgomery.
Well, one of the things I think, lots of people suffered during the pandemic, but of course the big issue sellers, a lot of them suffered quite a bit because we weren't going to work, we weren't passing the big issue seller and buying their magazine. And we both come into Waterloo Station quite often, Colin, and I was really pleased the other day to find the person who I used to see selling the big issue in a slightly different location, because I wondered what had happened to him, during the pandemic. And actually, so I think Prince William giving a little bit of publicity for a good cause that did actually suffer during the pandemic is very much echoing what his mother did for lots of causes.
For me, if there's anybody in the room that's going to be pretentious, it's usually me. But there's something like poetic about this. I'm thinking back to Shakespeare, Henry V, Henry IV, Prince Hal was criticised at the time in the play for hanging out with what you would describe as lowlifes. But he learned what it was to be poor. And there's a bit of that, you could argue, with what Prince William's doing here. He's not learning what it's like to be poor. He's selling the big issue. But London is stuffed with multimillionaires who know nothing of how the poor live. At least Prince William's trying to understand.
I think he's carving out the sort of king he wants to be and the sort of helper he wants to be to his father when he's king before him. And he's becoming increasingly compassionate and wanting to help people. Well, it was mental disorder and now all those things that he understands a little bit because of his own dysfunctional background, but actually he wants to help. He doesn't want to cut ribbons and all that sort of thing. He really wants to make a difference. And this is another way of doing it. And it also makes you smile to see him there because a lot of people didn't recognise him. I think you could recognise him immediately. He wasn't disguised. But
when somebody's out of place, out of context, yes, Angela, sometimes people don't spot you.
Exactly that. Isn't that fascitating? They don't see you because you're not in the right
Particularly
place.
wearing a baseball cap. People look quite different in a baseball cap.
Yes, he had ordinary clothes on. He wasn't in a smart suit, for example, to show the difference.